I'm going to demonstrate for you now a couple of the different delivery options that you have for your products. You'll remember that in the inventory server, we'll go edit linked and pick this top box. We have a box called red thing, and also the vendor itself is called red thing, and that's how it's matched up to the inventory server and how the product gets delivered. When you start a vendor of this type, you'll see that this text right here in the startup message says the word server in it. What that means is that the vendor prim is going to be delivering the product to the customer by way of the inventory server. And it doesn't matter if the inventory server is on the same region or on a different region as far as the vendor is concerned. It just knows that it's coming from the inventory server. But you have options there. So let's edit the vendor, and inside of it, let's take that red thing box that we put into the server, and now we'll also put it into the vendor itself. We'll close this, we'll reset, and now you'll see that the vendor thinks that it's in box mode. And what that means is that it's going to be delivering a single object from the inventory of the vendor prim itself directly to the customer. And that has several advantages, including cutting down on network traffic, cutting down on lag, cutting down on the time it takes for the object to arrive to the customer, things like that. There is also another mode. Let's take out this red thing box, and let's say that the red thing is actually made up of a note card and 3 other objects. So I'm going to take all those objects, and instead of having them in a box, I'm going to put them into the vendor as loose items. If Second Life ever wakes up, there it is, it'll show you all the objects. So now we've changed the mode. We're going to reset here, and now you'll see that the vendor is in folder mode. What that means is that it's going to give a folder to the customer instead of a single object, and instead of using the inventory server. So if we buy this item, which I will do now, you'll see here there's a message that says that it's given us a folder, and it actually says it didn't come from the inventory server, it came directly from the vendor prim. And so if we accept this, we'll see in our inventory here, here's a folder called red thing, and there's the items that came as part of that folder. So you have a few different options. It can either come from the server, it can come from the vendor, and when it comes from the vendor, it can come as a single box or as a folder. That choice is up to you. And real quick, I'd like to point out one more thing. This doesn't necessarily have to do only with vendors, but this is a good thing to keep in mind. You'll notice that when we bought this object, that some objects spoke to us. The red thing vendor itself, this prim, gives a little thank you message. And also, the store controller said something to us. It said, thanks for the purchase, you just earned $5 in store credit, you now have a total of 15. That came from the store controller. Now some messages are going to come from the controller, some will come from vendors. The messages that come from the controller, most of them are customizable, but one thing to notice is that we have this admittedly ugly name right here that has nothing to do with your store. This is the name of my vendor system. So what you should do is you should rename the store controller, and you do that. You can name it whatever you want. If your store happens to be called that, then you just name it whatever you'd like. And then next time you actually go and do something and you're going to get a message, you'll see that it looks a little bit more friendly to the customer, not to see something that seems so jarring as some vendor system name, but something that has more to do with your store is much friendlier.